Happy St. Patrick's Day. Today I'm going to make Barmbrack, which is an Irish tea bread. It's similar to the bar breath I made at Christmas time, but I've put my own twist on it and made it a little more springtime, I guess I could say. So I'm going to go through the several steps that you should do ahead of time in order to be ready to make this without any difficulty. I made my own candied orange and lemon peel. I washed 4 oranges and 2 lemons, dried them, then peeled off just the very outer layer with a carrot peeler, being careful not to include any of the white pith. In a medium saucepan, I combined 2 cups of sugar and 1 cup of water and brought it to a boil until the sugar was completely dissolved. Then I turned it down to low. I added the strips of orange and lemon peel, and I let those simmer on low for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, I drained them and tossed them in some white sugar, and then I put them on this rack to cool. And you can see that some of them I was able to get a little twisty shape. I achieved them by wrapping it around the tips for my piping bags. You can also use the handle of a metal pizza cutter or pastry cutter. So those decorative ones are going to go on top of the Barmbrack when it's done. You need to let these dry for about 24 hours, so it's best to plan ahead and make these in advance. And you'll find these have far more flavor than any store-bought you can buy. For the fruit that's going into the Barmbrack, I took 1 cup of hot water and steeped it with 2 tea bags until I had a good strong tea. I poured them in a bowl. I added 1 cup of raisins, a half a cup of red currants, and a half a cup of dried sour cherries. You can also use sultanas, golden raisins. You can mix up whatever fruits you have available. I also added 1 tablespoon of Irish whiskey, and I had reserved the liquid from cooking the orange and lemon peel, and I added that. So a little extra sweetness. I soaked these all overnight, 10 to 12 hours, and now I'm draining them to go into the bread. You may notice some little flecks in the fruit here. I also added 2 teaspoons of dried ginger bits when I was soaking the fruit overnight, just to give it a little extra zing. That's totally optional. This is the liquid that's left after draining the fruit. I'm going to put it in a saucepan on the stovetop and reduce it down so I can use it as a glaze for the top of the bread loaf when it comes out of the oven. I made my candied orange and lemon peel 24 hours ahead of time. Overnight I soaked my fruit and then I drained it, so now I'm ready to get started on the bread. The first thing we're going to do is bloom our yeast. So I've got 3/4 of a cup of lukewarm water. I've got a teaspoon of sugar and 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. Do not use the rapid rise. You will not like the way this turns out. Just mixing it up a little, and then I'm going to set it aside for 5 minutes in order for the yeast to have time to bloom. In the meantime, I can get on to the next step. I've got 3½ cups of all-purpose flour, which I did sift. I don't want any lumps. And I've got 1/3 cup of sugar. Now, normally this recipe I make with castor sugar, but what I did is I reserved the sugar that I used for making the candied peel, and I put it in my food processor to get it super fine, like the castor sugar. I've got 1 teaspoon approximately, the zest of 1 lemon. I've got 1 tablespoon of my mixed spice. It's a British mixed spice, but I make my own. And I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of dried powdered lemon peel, just to give it a little extra lift. And then I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to blend that all together, and then we'll be ready to go on to the next step. On to the wet ingredients. I've got 1 large egg, which I'm going to scramble just lightly, just to break it up a bit. Okay, and you can see that the yeast has gotten very foamy on top, so I'm going to put the yeast and the egg in with the dry ingredients. And scrape that down and get all that foam off the side of the cup. I want to make sure I get all of this yeast into the bowl, or as much as I can. I'm going to mix that on low just till it comes together. Now I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of melted butter. I did let this cool, but I put it in separately just to make sure it doesn't scramble my eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and stream that in there. And then I'm going to mix this all up. Now at this point, the dough is going to look a little dry. Do not be tempted to put extra liquid in there, because the strained fruit does still have quite a bit of moisture, and that will help bring the dough together. The dough has come together sort of, but it's still pretty dry. I'm going to add our fruit now. So I've got 1/3 of a cup of the candied peel. Again, you can add more if you like it more citrusy. And then I've got my 2 cups of dried fruit that were soaked. You can use a combination of whatever you want. You could even put dried apricots in this. And even though I did strain these, and I've got that strained juice on the stove reducing down for a glaze, there is a little bit extra in here, and I'm going to save that in case I need more liquid in the dough. So we're going to give that a mix and see how it comes together. You want to be careful not to overmix this dough because you don't want a tough bread. This is just a bit dry, and this is only about a tablespoon or so. I'm going to add that in just to totally pull this dough together. You're just going to mix this dough until it comes together. You're not going to knead it in the bowl. It is going to get an extensive rise time. So all I'm going to do is form this into a little bit of a ball and cover it with plastic. You can see it's quite fruity. That's because the cherries and the raisins pumped up quite a bit in that overnight soak. And again, that overnight soak was hot tea, a little bit of Irish whiskey, and I added some of the reserved sugar syrup from making the candied peel. And I'm just going to cover this and let it rise until it's about double in size. And then we'll go on with our loaf. There we have our loaf. You can see it is full of fruit. This is going to take about 90 minutes to 2 hours to raise. So you need to plan ahead when you're going to make this, but you have ample time for that. And it is called a tea bread. It's delicious, sliced, toasted. Spread a little butter on there, maybe a little orange or peach or apricot marmalade. Absolutely delicious. I'm lucky enough that my grandson Gabriel lives next door, and he loves to drop by just to say hi. But if he walks in and sees that I'm cooking or baking, he wants to jump in with me. So he's going to help me finish the barmbrack. Gabriel has joined me, and now we're going to shape our dough. So if you could sprinkle some of this onto the board, and then spread it out with your hand. That's good. Spread it all out like this.
Ah! We're going crazy.
Okay. That's okay. We can clean up. Now look at our bread.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna get this out on here.
Oh yeah. What?
And we're gonna kind of mush it down.
Oh shit. We have to mush out over the flour.
Well, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to cut this in half.
Yeah, like cut, cut, cut.
Okay. Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Just push down.
Ooh.
Okay, you take half. I take half.
Yeah.
You take that. Try to make it into like a log. Like that, kind of squish it. Just push the ends in like this.
Mm.
You don't get too much flour. Okay, just like that. There you go. Okay, can you make it out like a log like mine? Make it a little longer, like this. Okay, now you're gonna get the special pan. My sister bought me this pan. It's actually an autumn or Halloween pan, but we're gonna use it just because it's cool. So you're gonna put that in there, and you need to kind of push it down into the pan. And I've just got a regular loaf pan. See how I'm just kind of flattening it out? And we want to do that so it gets down into the holes.
So it'll look nice.
It's gonna look nice. Okay, now we're gonna cover these back up and let them raise a bit again, and then they'll go into the oven and we'll have delicious bread with fruit and spices in it.
Oh yeah.
See, there's mine. Can you show yours to the camera? Can you tip it? There we go. All right, that's good. So we're gonna cover those up.
Okay, we're gonna put the bread in the oven for 350.
What are you doing, Gabriel?
I'm putting the braise on the bread.
The glaze? Oh, it's beautiful and shiny.
Oh yes.
You put some of these on top. See the curly ones?
Taste.
Okay, take this one. Taste. Let's see. Look at you. Put it on top, and it'll stick to the glaze. Is it good?
Whoa.
That one's too long. Let's find some good ones. Here's a good one. Oh, here's a curly one. We just need to put a few on each one. Okay. Gabriel with our finished bread. What do you think? Is it pretty? Does it smell good? All right. Time to cut it. What do you think? All right.